Everyone, welcome to our 7th video of the Sideline Talk. Today we are going to start a series of videos where we are going to do a recap of each UFL week up to the playoffs and championship. We will probably also be doing this for the NFL, but because we started after the NFL season, we're going to start with the UFL. So there should be roughly 12 videos already right here. I hope you all enjoy this because we like to keep this going. Anyway, without further ado, before I got started with the first game, do you have anything to say?
I personally think it's great that we have football to watch, and the fact that we will get to follow the UFL this season in its infancy and go Renegades. So yeah, without further ado, who's up first?
The first game on kickoff weekend was the Houston Roughnecks versus the St. Louis Battlehawks. This was played here in Texas as the Roughnecks got the butts whooped 31-6 versus St. Louis. It was a very one-sided game as the Battlehawks scored in the first, second, and fourth quarter. They scored 6 in the first, 12 in the second, and 13 in the fourth. And just to make sure or clarify some rules, they do have some rules on PAT. On the PAT of points after touchdown, you can go for a 1, 2, or 3-point conversion. Most teams go for a 2-point, so that's probably one of the reasons why the score is what it is. But we'll see if the NFL adopts that. Also, another thing that they're doing is on which we saw in this game actually, is on instead of doing an onside kick, you do a 4th and 12 on your 28, and you got to get to the 40 to keep possession, and they ultimately failed on that one play. But nevertheless, let me get into the stats here.
I would just like to say real quick that I'm sure that most of our viewers, as well as me, I'm very used to the NFL rules, and I'm still getting used to the new PAT rules. It's weird, but at the same time, it's a little cool, and it's nice to see some differences with the different leagues. I mean, obviously, we know Canada plays its football a little different from the U.S., so it's very fun to watch in the minor leagues of football.
Yeah, so here we actually can do the offensive, defensive, special teams, drives in place, but we're just going to keep it simple, do just offense and defense, go over some basic stuff, some of the stuff, what we're marking. Anyway, without further ado, St. Louis Battlehawks passing Manny Wilkins as a quarterback number 5. He went 17-20 for 189 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and with a completion rate of 77.3. Not a bad game. Now, in the NFL, I don't think this would be considered a great game, but with the UFL, it being so young and having not as, let's say, high talent as the NFL, this is a pretty good game for a quarterback.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's not spectacular, but I guess for what they have and what they're doing, it's respectable.
Yeah, and so for the Houston Roughnecks, they actually benched, I don't know which quarterback because it doesn't tell me, but they benched one of them. Number 14 and number 13 were two, Anthony Brown and Nolan Henderson. Now I'll start with Nolan Henderson, number 14. He went through 7-18 for 68 yards and a touchdown. He had a 38.9 completion rating. And number 13, Anthony Brown, went 5 for 11 with 21 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks at a 45.5 completion rating. And this,
maybe he was benched.
I would think Anthony Brown was benched. Just looking at
2
that
interceptions
right
would probably put you on the bench.
Yeah. Anyway, so for passing totals, those two quarterbacks went through 12 and 29, 76 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, for a whopping 41.7 completion rating. That is brutal. That is not
Wow.
what you want.
That's just wow.
Yeah. And that was just out passing or the quarterback. Now let's go into running backs, where it looks like a running game. Running is huge in, at least so far for a few games, is as St. Louis Battlehawks. Jarvion Howard, 13 attempts for 115 yards, one touchdown. His longest was 74 yards, and is averaging about 8.8 yards a carry.
That's pretty good.
That is great for NFL too.
Yeah.
That is very good for NFL. I mean,
That
8.8 yards.
that average sounds like Josh Jacobs with the Packers. He averaged about 8 yards a carry sometimes, and that's 115 yards. That's more than a football field. So I would say that's a day accomplished.
Yes, their second dude wasn't far off, only about 17 yards shy of his, as Jacoby Sailors went for 16 attempts, 98 yards, one touchdown, 25 was his longest, and 6.1 yards a carry. Or at least that is still
that's a pretty good backup. Yeah.
And it just keeps going as their quarterback Manny Wilkins, 8 attempts for 43 yards, 2 touchdowns, as long as with 12, and he's averaging 5.4 yards carry. That is really good for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, is it like Mahomes? I should say Mahomes, like Allen or Josh Allen or
Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson? No. But he would be doing way better than at least half the
That's
NFL.
sufficient, yeah.
I mean, if you had that every game, they're going to be 100% be a powerhouse.
Yeah.
So anyway, going to the Houston Roughnecks rushing. Their leading rusher was Nolan Henderson, which is the quarterback. He went through 4 attempts for 54 yards, no touchdowns. Longest was 33, averaging 13.5 yards a carry. Nothing
That's
much.
Actually pretty good.
Well, for a quarterback, yeah. I mean, we can't judge the average just because he only had 4 attempts. Anyway, the quarterback that looks to be most likely to bench, he had one attempt for 20 yards. Longest was 20, and all was averaging 20 yards per carry. That's a decent carry. Now, that looks like to be his only highlight of the game. Then they had probably their actual starting running back, Kurt Merritt, with eight attempts, 16 yards, 10 as long as it was 10, averaging 2 yards carry.
Respectable, doing
what
he can.
It's like that's not good.
Relief rusher.
Yeah, but it's I think that's not good at all.
Yeah, I don't think Lorenzo Lingard did a whole lot either.
No, Lorenzo Lingard, three attempts, 4 yards, 2 as long as it was 2, 1.3. Nothing much other. They're averaging the total was only 94 yards to averaging a 15.9, compared to the St. Louis Battlehawks with averaging of 6.7 yards and 273 actual scrimmage yards.
Yeah, 273 versus 94 yards. That's a big difference.
There's a huge difference.
Their running game was great versus the Roughnecks, who probably couldn't get anything done.
They couldn't. No, they didn't get anything done. They had 1 touchdown the entire game. Yeah, they had 1 touchdown. So anyway, going to the receiving side of the ball. So just so that I can keep it simple, the St. Louis Battlehawks had 9 different receivers, while the Roughnecks had only 6. In total yards for the Battlehawks was 189 yards, 21 targets, and yards to carry was yards to carry was 129. So not bad at all.
I mean, look at the Roughnecks were exactly 100 yards short of the Battlehawks.
Yeah. At least they got a
89.
touchdown. Yeah, at least they got a receiving touchdown, but
Eh,
that looks to be the only
highlight, yeah.
highlight, yeah, of that. So that is for the offense of that game. Now looking to the defensive side of the ball. This should be just short. Well, I'm only going to do totals. We're not going to get into like all the little stuff because we could get into. I'll just read off everything they count. Total tackles, solo tackles, sacks, tackles for loss, interceptions. Not sure what burp or BRUP means. Fourth fumbles and fumble recoveries. I'm not going to get into for every single player because we would be here for eternity.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
will go
two
into
interceptions, yeah.
I will go for in total. So total tackles were 70 or 37 tackles. Total solo tackles were 27. So that being 58 total tackles on a very offensive side for the Battlehawks. So they didn't get as many reps on defense or time on defense. 3 sacks. That's good game. 3 tackles for loss. That's probably why they had such a bad running game. 2 interceptions. 7 burps or BRUP. Not sure what that means. I can 0 forced fumbles and 0 fumble recoveries. Overall, this was a very solid defense, and we can all obviously see that within the score of the game
Yeah.
being 31-6. That the defense definitely resembles that. Now going to the Houston side, they had 66 tackles and 48 solo tackles. So that looks to be around 100 plus tackles that they had to do just because how much defense they were on. They had 1 sack, which isn't bad, but it isn't. It's like okay,
ASAP, it's
yeah, a sack. I mean, it's take
you got
take it.
something.
Yeah, you got some one positive.
No interceptions though. They could not get an interception.
Nope, they had 0 interceptions, 3 tackles for losses, no interceptions, like you said, 1 burp, no clue what that means.
We'll have to figure that out sometime.
Yep, 0 force fumbles and fumble recoveries. So that is it for the St. Louis Battlehawks and the Houston Roughnecks. Week 2 starts tomorrow on Friday, April 4th. That's probably when this video is going to be uploaded. I wish we could have gotten it sooner, but time management and scheduling is always a factor. So anyway, going to the next video. The next game was the San Antonio Brahmas and the Arlington Renegades. Another absolute blowout. This being fairly close to us in Arlington at Choctaw Stadium, right across the Texas Rangers Stadium. This game heavily resembles 2-point conversions as the Renegades are the top team going for a 2-point conversion. Fun stat there as they completed looks to be 3 or they got a 3-point conversion. I can't tell because I couldn't watch the whole game. I was working. What's going on? But I can actually see the score, and according to this, it was a field goal. So they missed. So yeah. So the field goal. Anyway, going to the offensive side of the ball. As San Antonio only used 1 quarterback. Arlington used 1 quarterback, but it looks like a wide receiver. They tried to do a trick play that didn't work out.
Yeah, that I did watch that one. That one was it was good thinking, but the defense read it well, and I suppose I'll give credit where credit's due. The Brahmas saw it coming and they executed it very well.
Yes. So they did someone start saying San Antonio, their passing game. 17 for 31, 159, 135 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 54.8 completion rating. Not good. Yeah, it's not a good completion rating at all. clearly his offensive struggles. Um,
He was
while
pressured a whole lot. I'm gonna quickly say that the Renegades forced a ton of incompletions. They kept him on his toes and did not let many opportunities pass.
yes, now the total opposite is Arlington Renegades passing game as Luis Perez. It has been
Whereas,
Perez, sorry, has been doing this for 20 for 25, 164 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. Sadly, 1 interception, 76.9 yard 76.9 completion rating. That's great. I mean, he did his job. Clearly, the passing game isn't like top notch. Like all these games would be like all these quarterbacks would be bottom of the NFL. But this isn't the NFL. This is the UFL, where completely different play style, just due to different rules, different just different rules. Is the biggest thing is the play style, just due to
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I would say maybe okay, it's not perfect, but the Arlington Renegades passing game, it was good enough to get them to a good position to where, as you can see in the Renegades rushing, it got them to a position where they could just run the ball where they wanted to.
Oh yeah. So going into the rushing, I'm just gonna go through the totals because if I go through every single play, this video is gonna be like 5 hours long. I feel like. So totals for San Antonio, they had 4 rushers. They had 20 attempts, 105 yards, which isn't bad, but it's
Yeah,
amongst 4 players. So and their top player only rushed for 36, so that's not the greatest. They had 1 touchdown, luckily. And 30 the longest rush was 31 yards, and they're averaging 5.3 yards a carry.
not too bad.
No, not too bad in total. I mean, if this was one player, then no, that'd be great. But because it's split between 4 players, it's not good. Anyway, going to the Renegades, as the Renegades had five rushers, they had 31 attempts, 183 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 77. The longest was 77 yards, and averaging 5.99 yards a carry. One thing I do have to say this: one player only rushed for 3 yards, but he had 3 attempts, three
And three
yards.
touchdowns,
Yeah, let's say 3 touchdowns for 1 yard. He was averaging 1 yard a carry. That
which
is
is kind of funny. He's the guy who has the touchdown, the king of the touchdowns, but he only has 3 rushing yards. It's funny.
You take away, you can get them. I mean, what's
Yeah,
crazy
but
too is San Antonio last year had the best defense in the league.
did they really?
Yes, they had the best defense in the league, and then they just did this terrible game. Maybe they can have a giant bounce back. It it's week 1 or now week 2, but we'll see. Now going to passing, as passing, San Antonio 10 different receivers, 17 17 17 attempts, 100 or sorry, not attempts, 17. Yeah, 17, sorry, 17 catches, 159 yards, 0 touchdowns. Longest was 19 yards, amongst 30 targets and yards.
After catch,
So yards after catch, 154 yards.
which isn't too bad, but when you look at the Renegades who had 91 yards after catch,
Yeah.
there's a kind of a big difference there.
Yeah, and the passing game wasn't for both teams wasn't top notch. I mean, Renegades clearly lead them, but I think the only reason why they do kind of lead them is because it was 8 receivers for Arlington and 10 receivers for San Antonio. And it seemed that the passing game for Arlington was more mature. I don't think it's the best word, but like more like restricted to like I know he's gonna make this catch and I'm gonna throw it because he only had 5 incomplete, so he was clearly compared to 13 incompletes from San Antonio.
Yeah,
So that's going to wrap up the offense. Like going to the defense, the defensive side, which is so many players. Just say Arlington used let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 more players, but it's just how it ends. That I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. As San Antonio's total tackles, 61, and solo tackles, 43. That's 104 tackles in total. 2 interceptions. One interception. Sorry. Looks to be 2 tackles for loss, 2 burps, zero forced fumbles and 0 first for recoveries. A lot more smaller numbers for the Renegades. They only had 44 tackles, 34 solo tackles, so about 78 tackles total. 2 sacks, 7 tackles for losses, 0 interceptions, 7 burps, 1 forced fumble, and 0 fumble recoveries.
And as you said earlier, the reason why they had some little less tackles is because they were not playing defense as much as the Brahmas were.
Yeah, they were forcing the Brahmas to go just 1, 2, and 3 offensive plays almost every single time. Going to the third game, as the Memphis Showboats played the Michigan Panthers in Memphis, Tennessee. This game was I don't see less scoring, but much more closer game, as it was 26-12 in the Panthers favor. And I am not a Michigan Panthers fan, even though I clearly have decked out Panther stuff. I am not a Michigan Panthers fan.
Yeah, disclaimer, he is not a Michigan Panthers fan. He is a Carolina Panthers fan. Different state, different team.
Completely different team, different league. I am a Renegades fan.
I do want to say that Alex's Carolina Panthers are better than the Michigan Panthers, and their uniforms and stuff are cool, but yeah, different Panthers, y'all.
Yes, the logo is completely different, and if logo is 100% different, I mean they got a pretty cool logo.
Yeah,
don't understand the blue in it. I can understand for the eye, but anyway, we're not here to dissect logos. Anyway, scoring was 26-20-12 final. We clearly Showboats are not the greatest team. They have been a struggling team for the last two years, but it is what it is. Anyway, so from what I'm looking at right here, apparently each team used 2 quarterbacks. Both have some interesting results. So total among the 2 quarterbacks for the Michigan Panthers, Bryce Perkins and Danny Etling, they are 20 for 25, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, 80% completion rating. And for the Memphis Showboats, Troy Williams and EJ Perry, 18 for 28, 178 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 1 each, and a 64.3 passer rate completion rating. Don't know why I keep saying passer rating. It might be the same thing, but I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, I think they're more or less the same.
Yeah. Anyway, total stats, not bad. Around equal, except for the completion, and both threw 1 touchdown, both fairly close, same amount of yards, 2 interceptions for one team, none for the other. So the passing game for both times are pretty similar.
Not too bad, but
no, not too bad.
It looks like the passing game was the side that ruined the day.
Yes, so far the first game where passing has had a significance in it, because going down to see the total of rushing, it is brutal. As 4 rushers from Michigan, as they only quitted for 32 attempts, 95 yards, 1 touchdown, longs 13, averaging 3.0 yards a game. The Showboats sounding better, 24 attempts, 69 yards, 0 touchdowns, longs for 16 yards, and for 2.9 yards carry.
That's not really good at all.
Not ideal in the slightest. Now, because there's nothing much to talk about there, going down to passing, though, we clearly see a wide receiver that dominated even though the team still lost, you can see great production from at least one receiver for the Showboats, which is
They look to be fairly equal, actually. Comparing and contrasting.
yeah. But one team did clearly have a more dominant receiver, and that is Jonathan Adams of the Memphis Showboats for six catches for 93 yards. His one touchdown, longest was 30, as long as 38. His he had 7 targets and for 24 yards after carry.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, that is NFL. That is, I want to say, like NFL production right there.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an NFL team with a somewhat decent quarterback and like 2 good receivers, that's going to be hopefully every game amongst 3 receivers. So not a bad game for him, Jonathan Adams. Now everybody else, the next is two catches, 27 yards, longest 24, 4 targets, and 28 yards after catch. Not good.
Yeah, it looks like Jonathan Adams is the number 1 receiver for the Memphis Showboats.
And he's the number 1 receiver out of the entire game, as number 9 for the Panthers. Marcus Sims didn't have much.
Didn't have nearly as good of a game.
Yeah, so in total they had 20 catches for 193 yards, 1 touchdown, 30 longest was 30 yards for 25 targets and 91 yards per carry. Actually, from what it looks like here, despite losing, the Memphis Showboats had a much better passing game, as they had 18 yards, except for the number of catches, was 18 for 97 yards, 1 touchdown, 38 was the longest, 27 targets and 100 yards after catch. We clearly see, for once, a more dominant passing game.
Yes,
at least when it comes to receivers.
It's definitely a huge contrast, and show that they control the ball on offense very well.
Oh yeah, and which is honestly something to be happy about, especially for a league or last 2 games to be very run dominant. Now going to the defensive side of the ball, where I believe the Showboats were actually the worst defense. I could be wrong. I don't think they were the greatest defense as of last year. But going down, very down. For obvious reasons, just you can tell by the score, the Memphis Showboats should have more tackles / playing time, just because the Panthers have much more spread out / longer offensive time, as total 63 yards, 63 tackles, 34 solo tackles, so it's 97 total for 3 sacks. Yeah, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for losses, 2 interceptions, 4 burps, and 0 fumble recoveries or fumbles. For going to Memphis side of the ball, which, like I said before, they should obviously have more, is they have looks to be 108 total tackles, 1 sack, 3 tackles for losses, 0 interceptions, 1 burp, and 0 forced fumbles or fumble recoveries.
Not really much to show for.
No, I mean, it's not a terrible defense. You did give up 26 points. I mean, it wasn't a great game. Wasn't a great showing. But you know what? It is what it is. The game could have been way worse. It could have been like the 2 prior games, Battlehawks and Roughnecks and the Renegades and Brahms. Anyway, going to our last game was the reigning champions Birmingham Stallions versus the DC Defenders.
And they lost.
Yes. What's crazy too is the DC Defenders were 9-point, according to bets and all of the statistics and whatnot, 9-point underdogs.
Wow.
and they won by 7. They won by a full touchdown.
That's crazy. Wow.
Good for them.
Don't roll out the underdogs. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's you think you're gonna win, you're never gonna win. Now, this so far is our best passing game, and we'll get to that in a second. Alex McGo or McGo, probably is how you say it. Number 10 of the Birmingham Stallions was 10 for 23 with 89 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for 43.5 completion rating. That is I think the worst
that
we've seen.
That's pretty bad. You had 23 passes and you only completed 10 of them. That's really no. And 89 yards, that's all he had to show for. Look at the DC Defenders quarterback had 211 yards.
Yeah, 211, 17 for 37. His completion rating wasn't too much better.
Yeah,
but
so
his yards that he threw for are much better. It's a passing touchdown, passing 1 interception. Same with the others. So we're not those. I don't want to say balance out, but they kind of do. At least when we look at that statistics. Going to the rushing game. Apparently, Alex Mingo likes to be a Lamar Jackson, as he had 84 rushing yards. He actually led the team in rushing yards at 84. They had 20 attempts for 122 yards, 0 touchdowns, longest was 26 yards for averaging 6.1 yards a carry.
Interesting. So their rushing game was better than the DC Defenders, 122 versus 86. I find that interesting. Definitely Alex McGow, his rushing, I guess, was a lot part of that for the most part.
Clearly, it didn't work out. Saying that.
Only 84 yards, my dude.
Yeah. Which
in
the score.
Jackson for the Defenders, 10 attempts, 42 yards, no touchdowns, longest 11. Wasn't great, but I mean, he's the leader, averaging 4.2 yards a carry.
Yeah. So, not very dangerous rushing game for this one. They are playing the reigning champions, so they should have a pretty good defensive game.
Yeah, I mean, look at the contrast. The Birmingham Stallions were averaging, all of them were averaging 6.1 versus the DC Defenders 3.0.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of the reigning champions showing a little bit of their worth.
Yes. Anyway, going on to the passing game, as clearly it didn't work out for Birmingham.
Yeah, that's
the leading receiver with 2 catches for 28 yards, 4 targets, 8 yards after carry, as long as for 22. And then it's 1 catch, 2 catches for 9 yards, 1 catch, no catches for.
So they're spreading it around.
It seems that they weren't. It seems like they weren't doing very elaborate routes. Maybe like clearly no go routes. Probably more like slants or flats or nothing
like
nothing.
That, yeah.
Yes, nothing crazy. Nothing crazy in the slightest.
Yeah, but look at the DC Defenders. Ty Scott had 5 catches for 61 yards. Longest was 24, 10 targets, and 26 yards after catch. That's pretty good.
Yeah, especially looking at Birmingham's game, very much more significant.
Yeah, 61 yards versus the 28 yards for the leading receiver for the Stallions. That's a big difference there.
Yeah, and it seems, and yards after catch, 66 to 65, so about equal there, about 35 targets to 23 targets in total. Longest was 35 yards. Longest for them was 23. 1 touchdown, 211 touchdown. Not touchdowns. That would be crazy. Yards. Has 17 catches to 10 catches. This is not the worst passing game, at least for one of the teams here. I mean, I think the easiest to say is Birmingham had the worst passing game.
Yeah, it's really not looking respectable at all.
Oh yeah, not at all. Anyway, Final thing we have here for at least for the games is defense. Let's see defense does. Hopefully, I mean, it was a very defensive game shown by the score. And looking at the stats here, oh boy, was you can definitely tell one team had more offensive time. As total tackles was 73, so it's roughly 102 tackles. But if I'm reading this right, because I think solo means solo tackles. I think I could be wrong. Anyway, to one sack, 3 tackles for losses, 1 interception, 11 burps, no forced fumbles or fumble recoveries.
And we can tell they're playing defense a lot of the time.
Yes. To actually Birmingham, not Birmingham, DC, which had only 79 total tackles between tackles and solos. 80, not 80, 8 sacks, which
Wow.
is
8 sacks. That's crazy.
That is great.
That's probably a large reason why they won. If you can get 8 sacks, will force the opposing offense to fall backwards and rethink their strategy.
Clearly, it won't be Joe Burrow because he took 11 sacks and still won a playoff game against Tennessee.
Yeah.
But it's also Joe Burrow. And anyway, I have to get too sidetracked. They had 9 tackles for losses. So just looking at this, they had 17 tackles for losses between sacks and just running backs or wide receivers catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage. 17 times where they got negative yards.
That's incredible.
Yes, especially for an supposed underdog. Anyhow, going back on track, they had 1 interception, not bad. 4 burps, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. So the 1 fumble that they did give, they got back. That is all the games for as of last week. This is pretty good. I think I want to say a good kickoff week. And hopefully the games get more. I don't want to say reasonable, but
maybe some good offensive showings. Defense,
yes,
I don't really have a problem with, but I want to see more offense. Over 100 yards catching, team-wise at least.
Yes, and so that we can this is next week's or this week's starting schedule on April 4th. Birmingham is playing the Michigan Panthers. On April 5th, Memphis Showboats are playing DC. Houston is playing Arlington. San Antonio is playing St. Louis. And just for a bit of fun, even though this shouldn't take too long, I'm going to say this. I want to say you would do Birmingham and Houston, Houston Roughnecks and the Birmingham Michigans, and I'll do the Memphis, DC, and San Antonio and St. Louis. Who do you think is going to win your 2 games that I'm going to give you full custody over saying who's going to win? Between starting with Birmingham and Michigan, who do you think is going to win that game from the stats and what we saw from week 1?
I think that the Michigan Panthers can pull it off. Good showing on offense, and if they can keep it up, they can win over the Birmingham Stallions, especially after the disastrous showing that the Stallions gave us. So hopefully all goes well for the Panthers. And what was the other game you said?
That would be the Houston Roughnecks and the Arlington Renegades.
I really don't want to be too biased, but if Luis Perez, who is my favorite quarterback in the league, if he can keep his passing game up, I think he can lead them past the Houston Roughnecks. The Houston Roughnecks, I would say they need to focus more on defense and containing Luis Perez in the pocket. If they can sack him for forced fumbles and forcing completions, they can definitely keep the Arlington Renegades offense down and this will create more opportunities for the Roughnecks offense to take the ball and score. So I want to say the Renegades will win, but if the Roughnecks can play defensively, they can win.
One thing that the piggyback off of you is Luis Perez. He's not a running quarterback. He runs if he absolutely needs to. But
yes, he only had one run against the Brahmas.
Yeah, I only saw him like once or a handful of times. He's a passing quarterback. So like you said, if they can collapse that pocket and force pressure, they can probably get a good bit of sacks. Now, going to my games is the Memphis Showboat versus DC Defenders. If we see the DC Defenders that we saw against the Birmingham Stallions, Memphis Showboats, have no chance of winning.
Yeah.
If the DC Defenders showed the exact same mentality, strategy, and just overall playing wise, they're going to 100% whoop the Showboat. So I can see this game getting like 30 plus points for DC. And for the last game on April 6th is the San Antonio Brahmas and the St. Louis Battlehawks. I am going to pick Battlehawks here just for the simple fact that they are a much better team, as we saw clearly as last week. To me, they are a much better team as of last week. And if there are upsets or anything, that I would honestly love to see that. But that tour is saying going to win. If any upsets are happening, we will talk about that in our week 2 episode. But that's going to be it for us.
Please like and subscribe. We would appreciate it. Share with friends, share with family. Please just take 1 second to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you very much.
All right, this is the Sideline Talk.